The aforementioned rifting does not occur along a singular fault or crack, but rather through numerous faults spread out over a wide area, which has created numerous half-grabens. These faults create a path of least resistance for molten rock to intrude into, which allows it to intrude into the crust and occasionally erupt. One such fault was utilized 1700 CE eruption, presumably after the major Cascadia megathrust earthquake of 1700, causing molten rock to slowly rise through the crust. This generated a swarm of earthquakes which were repeatedly felt by locals. The earthquakes became stronger and stronger until magma reached the surface and created phase 1100-meter-high lava fountains along an 800-meter-long fissure. As lava fell back to the ground, it rapidly flowed downslope, and in 6 hours' time had already traveled 5.7 kilometers to reach the Cix River Valley, also damming the river to the south to form a body of water called Lava Lake. After lava made this turn to the north is when the real tragedy struck. The lava flow and eruption disaster strikes had been emitting substantial amounts of carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide gas, all of which are lethal at varying concentrations and were heavier than residual air. As a result, these toxic gases traveled downhill, being confined by the river valley until it reached a bend in the river where it began pooling to lethal concentrations due to regional topography, causing it to become trapped there. As a result, thousands immediately dropped unconscious and died, with a similar fate occurring to those who were sleeping, quietly being asphyxiated en masse. This occurred at 3 settlements and 2 additional outlying areas of the Nisga'a, killing 2,000 people. The advancing basanite to trachybasalt lava continued downslope, eventually burying a fishing camp at hour 17. At hour 23 the lava flow reached a series of smokehouses, and as the lava turned the corner west into the Nass Valley, it diverted the pathway of the Nass River further northwards. The 3 villages were then completely buried by advancing lava flows, destroying every single structure by hour 45. This lava flow continued to slowly advance during Phase 2 the next 95 days, eventually traveling up to 32 kilometers from its source. A spatter rampart then began to grow, with 3 sets of vents ejecting moderate amounts of ash and feeding another lava flow which would reach the smokehouses 5 days later. The eruption then paused for a few hours, after which it resumed at only a singular vent as the 2 satellite vents became inactive. More Phase 3 and AMP-4 viscous and gas-rich magma then began to erupt, resulting in the generation of a 5-kilometer, 16,400-foot-high eruption plume which ejected larger amounts of ash. A cinder cone started to grow during this phase, via intermittent explosions of tephra which largely fell close to their source vent, creating a growing cone. The violent strombolian phase lasted for 10 days, feeding a more viscous lava flow which eventually came to a halt, by which the final phase of the eruption caused declining activity to collapse part of the northern cinder cone. In total, this eruption lasted for 120 days, covering 37.31 square kilometers or 14.41 square miles in a fresh layer of lava. The lava flows would take more than a decade to completely cool. This eruption proves that under a narrow set of circumstances which vary from volcano final thoughts to volcano that even an apparently not very dangerous volcanic system can prove to be quite lethal, which is why each and every world